Hello, Cyprus. I'm Andronicos, and I'd like to tell you something really shameful that happened to me many years ago. I'm embarrassed, but I'm transparent, I'm honest, and I want you to hear my story. When I was 2.5 years old, maybe 3 years old, I did something really bad. My poor grandmother was sitting on the sofa, minding her own business. And I kind of crawled up to her or walked up to her, and I noticed just above her knee, she had a mole. So I started fiddling with it, and my grandmother sort of told me to stop it. Stop this, Andronicos, don't be silly. But I kept fiddling with it, and for some reason, and don't ask me why, I can't remember, it irritated me to the point where I put my mouth on it and bit it off. What a horrible thing to do to my grandmother. And I'm absolutely ashamed what I did. It was like a scene from a horror movie. It was like I was a zombie baby. Because my grandmother started screaming. There was blood flowing down her leg. I started screaming. My face was covered in blood. And then my mother ran into the room. She started screaming, thinking we'd been attacked. And everybody was screaming. And I was thoroughly disciplined for the stupidity. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the day I bit my grandmother. Now, why have I told you this rather strange story? Firstly, to caveat something, before I give the reasons, is it was like a scene from a horror film, but it wasn't like I was demonic. I wasn't sort of walking on the ceiling, speaking ancient Aramaic. I was not projectile vomiting. I did not have a large tongue that was 1 meter long, slapping people. Nevertheless, it was a horrific thing to do. So going back to why have I told you this? I tell you, firstly, I learned from my mistakes, and I'm 66 years old. I'm technically a pensioner, and I've made mistakes, but I've learned from that. But another reason I've told you this is we have potentially, although very unlikely, 3-year-olds watching this film, this little film clip of me. In the extremely unlikely event, there are 3-year-olds interested in Cyprus politics, the Cyprus problem, EU governance, and how the 27 member states deal with each other. I've got to say this to these kids who are watching. Do not bite your grandmothers. It's not a nice thing to do, so don't do it. The second thing I ask for 3-year-olds, in the unlikely event they're watching this, I want you to do something really, really important. I want you to go to your parents. I want you to go to your uncles and aunties and friends of your parents' family and your grandmothers and grandfathers. And remember, do not bite your grandmothers. And I want you to say something to them from me, which is, if they don't vote for me in the upcoming election on June the 9th, and they vote for somebody else, it means they don't love you anymore. So can you pass that message? Right. What's another reason I gave you my Andronicos the zombie baby story, which is a true story? Why did I tell you this story? Here's why. Firstly, on the positive side, we Cypriots are very loyal. We do things as families. For example, when we're young, we tend to pick the soccer team, football team of our parents and grandparents, generally father and grandfather, maybe an uncle. So if you're always APOEL, if you're always Manchester United from the age of 5, you stick with that. You don't know many people who change their football team every 5, 10, 20 years because we're loyal. The second thing we're loyal about is our religion. So if you're brought up as a Cyprus Orthodox or a Catholic, it's very rare you will change your religion. There are lots of people who don't particularly follow a religion, but they don't tend to change it because we're loyal to our families, we're loyal to our culture, and that's the way we are. Now, the third aspect of loyalty is to political parties. Now, political parties, we tend to vote in Cyprus as families. Not always, but generally, which is, from a young age, we're brought up to think that certain political parties or certain political philosophies are the best. Now, that could be left-wing communist Akel, right-wing Ilam, something in the middle, and we tend to vote for those parties as families. We rarely change it. We do, but it isn't that often. I am asking everybody, just for once, to do something different, and only for this election. And that is to vote with your hearts, to vote with your minds, so that we can create change. I'm inviting you to vote for me. You can read my manifesto on Andronicos.cy or my Facebook page, Andronicos CY. You can go into a deep dive, look at my 21 major points, and decide who you're going to vote for. Another reason that I am suggesting we don't act as zombies and always vote for the same political party as a one-off is, I feel very strongly, we should punish the main political parties. Why? Because on February the 29th, they passed a law that absolutely disgusted me. And what was that law that caused such offense to me and others? They passed a law in our parliament that basically said, if you do not have a university degree, you cannot be an advisor to the president or his ministers, which basically means you are second-class citizens. And a lot of these second-class citizens are women because they had babies young, they didn't go to university, they're very bright, they've got brains the size of planets, extremely high IQs, but they had children. And for 20 years, even if they wanted to go to university, they could not. So please, let's punish these political parties for daring to pass such a law. And there's something else I want to add. What do the following people have in common? Let's work it out. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, Mother Teresa, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and a lot of other CEOs. They do not have university degrees. Yet, in the extremely unlikely event, Bill Gates, due to some Cyprus connection, due to some loyalty to Cyprus, said, "Oh, I'd like to be an advisor to the president." He is considered too stupid to be an advisor, despite all his success throughout his life. That law disgusted me, and I am inviting you to vote against the parties that passed it. So, fellow Cypriots and those that have the right to vote in Cyprus on June the 9th, I'm inviting you to vote for me on June the 9th. I'm inviting you to steer our country into a better course, because it will make a huge difference who the 6 elected members of the European Parliament are. And in the most respectful way, despite our incredible loyalty to our religious faith, our football teams, and our political parties, let's not be zombies. Just for once, vote for something different. And children, 3-year-olds watching this, remember, do not bite your grandmothers. It's a not nice thing to do. Thank you very much.